bookish people, welcome back to my channel. My name is Meghan. In today's video, we are going to be going over my book of the month predictions for September. Last month, somebody commented on my videos and said I should go through last month's selections and tell you which ones I got right, which ones I got wrong, and what a great month to do this because August was one of my best months ever. There was 6 main picks and I guessed 5 out of the 6. The only one I didn't pick is The Many Lives of Mama Love. That was a memoir and nonfiction, which I never include nonfiction in here because it's so hit or miss on when book of the month selects one. I feel like they only select like 1 or 2 nonfictions a year, so they never show up in my videos. So 5 out of 6 I would say is really good. I believe there's 4 add-ons and I guessed 2 of the add-ons. So let's get into our September predictions, starting with the in-app hint. So this month, book of the month did 3 word searches and each one had a different clue in it. And the words on those word searches were friends, chef, lover. That book is You Again by Kate Goldbeck, and once you read the synopsis of it, I feel like it does make sense for these words. In this book, you're following Ari and Josh, and they hate each other. It says, when Ari and Josh first meet, the wrong kind of sparks fly. They hate each other instantly. And I love that because I love an enemies to lover story. It's one of my favorite romance tropes. They are enemies, they don't like each other, they know each other because they are dating the same girl, or at least at some point in their lives have dated the same girl. Then they both go through ego bruising breakups and they cross paths once again, and they're both just too sad to hate each other, so they just end up becoming friends instead. As friends without benefits, they find comfort in late night Netflix binges, swiping through each other's online dating profiles, and bickering across boroughs. It's better than romance until one night the unspoken boundaries of their platonic relationship begin to blur. So there we go. There's the friendship, there's the lovers, and you're probably wondering, Meghan, what does this have to do with chefs? Well, I will tell you. It says, Josh has ambitious plans. Take the culinary world by storm. That is his first plan. There you go, culinary chef. It all makes sense. And can we just talk about this cover? It is absolutely stunning and giving me fall vibes. So if I get it, obviously we are going to be reading it very soon. Since that is a romance pick, I will not be doing anything in the romance category because that is my romance prediction and my hint prediction all in one. But now let's move into my fiction predictions, starting with The River Runs South by Audrey Ingram. First, let's talk about the cover and the fact that it takes place in Alabama. It's giving me Where the Crawdads Sings vibes. Like, look at the cover, look at Where the Crawdads Sing cover. That Where the Crawdads Sings, I think, takes place in North Carolina, whereas this one obviously takes place in Alabama. But hey, you know, it's all southern stuff, have similar covers, giving me similar vibes. And Where the Crawdads Sings was one of those books where I was not interested in the synopsis of it. I only picked it up based on the hype, and I ended up rating it 5 stars, and that is giving me similar vibes. Like, this book is giving me the vibes of, like, I feel like the synopsis isn't calling to me, but if I read it, it's going to be an emotional, powerful story that I'll end up rating 5 stars and loving. In this book, you're following our main character, Camille, and her husband recently died, so she is dealing with a lot of grief, and she has had enough. So she decides to pack up her whole life in her car, pack her daughter up, and she moves to Alabama, back to the small town where she grew up. And when she's there, she meets a fisherman named Mac, and he is telling her about all this pollution that is happening in their waters there, and he is suing the company responsible for it. Well, turns out that company is her father's company, and she is a lawyer, so she decides to join her father's defense team and defend them. But as she's in the small town longer, she's learning about the pollution and she's growing closer to Max. She starts to doubt which side she is on. And this book releases September 5th, so I feel like the closer it is to the beginning of the month, the more of a chance it has of being a selection. That is in contrast to this next book that comes out September 26th, so if it is not one of my September picks, then it will be on my October predictions as well. And that book is The Museum of Failures by Thrity Amargar. This book is an emotional story following a mother and son's relationship. So you're following our main character Remy, and he has had a rough childhood, so he decides to leave home and start over. And then when he is an adult ready to adopt a child, he wants to reconnect with his mother, kind of get that relationship back now that he is starting a family of his own. And when he goes to visit his mother, he realizes that the illness she had has really taken over her whole body and she is not doing really well. So he starts to feel a lot of regret for all the time that has passed and how he did not know she was doing so poorly. And it's about them trying to reconnect and redeem their relationship together. It seems to be a deep and emotional story. This is the author of Honor, which I feel like I saw that book cover everywhere when it came out, so I feel like this is going to be a very popular release regardless of whether it is a book of the month selection or not. Now moving into historical fiction, the first 2 books I have to talk about are both by repeat authors. The first one being The River We Remember by William Kent Kruger. This seems to be an emotional historical novel that is also a mystery. In 1958, a small Minnesota town is rocked by the murder of its most powerful citizen, pouring fresh fuel on old grievances. This author also wrote This Tender Land, which was a book of the month selection in the past, and this book releases September 5th. The next author that is also a repeat author is The Vaster Wilds by Lauren Groff. Now, she has been a Book of the Month selection back in 2015 with her book Fates and Furies, but all her books published since 2015 have not been Book of the Month selections. But who knows? It never say never, right? This book is about one spirited girl alone in the wilderness trying to survive. Lauren Groff's new novel is at once thrilling adventure story and a penetrating fable about trying to find a new way of living in a world succumbing to the turn of colonialism. And this book comes out September 12th. Now we're getting into my sci-fi fantasy picks, and I feel like these are more hopefuls rather than I really think they will be picked. Starting out with the one sci-fi selection, which is Starter Villain by John Scalzi. He is the author of the Kaiju Preservation Society. It is a sci-fi book I absolutely love. I rated it 5 stars. I am dying to read his newest release, so obviously I want it to be a Book of the Month selection so I could just get it through them. In this book, you're following your main character, and his uncle is a supervillain, and he dies, and he inherits his uncle's supervillain lair, and all the people running this lair are sentient cats, and I just love that. It sounds really fun. I love his previous work, and I'm just very excited for this to come out, regardless whether it is a Book of the Month selection or not, and this one comes out September 19th. The first fantasy prediction I have is The Fall of Ruin and Wrath by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Now, she is a repeat author from Book of the Month. The book Storm and Fury was a selection by them. That was back in 2019, but obviously this author is known for her huge romantasy series from Blood and Ash. That is like the never-ending romantasy series that have books like this big. Yeah, that's her. I have been wanting to read that series. I own the first book on the series, but it's kind of daunting because there are so many books in it and they're all large. And it's not that I'm really like scared to read them. They're romantasy. I love romantasy. It's more of just like a time commitment. But this is the start of a new series she is coming out with that is called The Awakening. This is book 1. This one I'm on the fence about whether they would pick her or not, because obviously From Blood and Ash was not one of their picks. Also too, I feel like it's gonna be very spicy. Isn't that what she's known for? Like spicy romantasy. And I know Book of the Month has had spicy novels in their romances, but I feel like they don't pick books known for spice. They just have a little spice. So we shall see, but I'm really hoping it is. And the last fantasy prediction I have is Son of Blood and Ruin by Morelli Lairs. This reimagining of Zorro featuring a heroic warrior sorceress weaves Mesoamerican mythology and Mexican history 2 decades after the Spanish conquest into swashbuckling historical debut fantasy with magic, intrigue, treachery, and romance. Now, I believe this is the Fairy Loot pick for September as well. Sometimes Book of the Month and Fairy Loot have the same picks coincidentally, like Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong. And this book comes out September 28th, so if not a September pick, possibly an October pick. Now moving into my favorite category, which is mystery thrillers. The first one we have is Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. This is the same author as Luckiest Girl Alive, which I believe was a Book of the Month selection. I'm not 100% sure on that though. Luckiest Girl Alive was probably the most disturbing mystery thriller I ever read, and not necessarily in a fun way, but it had to deal with a lot of topics that I don't like to read about. This one though, I'm gonna give her another chance because the plot to this sounds really interesting. This one you're following the Ted Bundy murders when he murdered the girls at FSU. It takes place in the 1970s. I feel like this is what you call speculative fiction, right? Because you're inserting fictional characters into a real world event. That's what speculative fiction is, right? That's what I think it is. Anyway, so there's this one. We shall see if it is a selection or not. I know this one is just on my radar because I read her previous book. Oh, this one comes out October 3rd. Why did I think it came out in September? So I don't know. I actually don't know. The next mystery thriller I am predicting is This Is How We End Things by R.J. Jacobs. And the reason this book calls out to me, I didn't even read the synopsis. I just read the blurb on the top and it is everything. It says Riley Sager meets If We Were Villains in a compelling new psychological thriller by R.J. Jacobs, following a tight-knit group of graduate students studying the psychology of lying when one of them is discovered dead after an experiment. Everything the group thought they knew about deception crumbles. That book sounds right up my alley. First of all, Riley Sager. I love Riley Sager, so if you're saying any book is for fans of Riley Sager, that book is then for me. And then If We Were Villains, I haven't read it, but I feel like a lot of people have read it and really loved it. That is one of those books I constantly see everywhere, constantly recommended. So I feel like I would probably enjoy that book as well. So if you're comparing those two books together, and this is about psychology too, which I think is really interesting. It's about a group of psychology students studying the psychology of lying. One ends up dead. Like, it just creates a very interesting premise. And the last book I am predicting is The Stranger Upstairs by Lisa M. Matlin, sorry. A social media influencer with a secret past buys a murder house to renovate, but finds more than she bargained for behind the peeling wallpaper in this Gothic psychological debut. I have recently learned, after reading The Only One Left by Riley Sager and Belladonna by Adeline Grace, that I love Gothic stories. This is something I've recently discovered. I thought I didn't like them because I didn't like the Hacienda, but it turns out I actually do like them. This one is a pick. I feel like I will definitely select it because I need to confirm whether I like Gothic stories or not, and so far we're 2-1. And the last book we're going to talk about is in the add-ons category, and the only add-on I am predicting is Foul Heart Huntsman by Chloe Gong. The reason I am predicting this is because Foul Lady Fortune was the book of the month selection, and it is a duology, so why wouldn't they have the sequel as an add-on? This book comes out September 26th, so if it is not a September add-on, I would assume it would be an October add-on. Those are all my September book of the month predictions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!
All these dried up bones